What up? What up? What's going on, everybody? Want to welcome you guys. Hopefully, everybody can hear me, but want to welcome everybody to Moonwell Radio, episode 5, The Playbook. My name is Hadi, aka Hadi's World. Good friends with my guy Tristan Thompson, and of course Luke. And we're excited to do this kind of Twitter Spaces today, this X Spaces. Luke, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Hadi, how's it going, man? Great to
I'm
be
good, my
here.
brother. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Tristan, I got you in the building. Are you in here too?
I'm here. I'm out here.
Hey,
Going
shout
on, everybody. What's up, everybody? Luke, what's going on?
ATT, good to see you again, man.
Likewise.
Guys, I also got our guy Eli in here. Shout out to Eli. I know he's kind of moderating and he's gonna be taking questions and helping us out. So Eli, what up?
Thank you, Hadi. Great to be here for this All-Star cast.
Yeah, we're making it happen, guys. First and foremost, before we get into anything Web3, gotta send a congratulations to my guy Tristan, man. 11-0 with the Cavs. A little round of applause. TC, how's the season started, man? Tell us more.
I mean, it doesn't get no better than me 11-0, man, right? We're in Chicago right now. We got the Bulls tomorrow. Everything's better when you're winning. The food tastes better. You sleep better at night. Everyone tells you how great you are. So everyone's happy, man. We're trying to keep the good times going, man. Keep the good times rolling.
What's your prediction for the first 20 games? What's your record?
Listen, I mean, I'm taking the 20-0. I'm taking us versus anybody
I
right now.
like it.
So.
I like the confidence. Luke, I know you're a West Coast guy, man. You're a Warriors fan. Have we converted you over yet?
Luke is still recovering from what he saw a couple nights ago. What we did to them.
Luke, I think you're on mute, by the way. We didn't hear you, but I
Oh,
take
sorry. Yeah.
I take the silence as a good thing.
No, it was a great game. I mean, it may have been the first home game or the first Warriors game that I was rooting for the Cavs. So good job, Tristan. You guys killed it.
We
Uh,
were making all shots. It was good.
So, guys, we're in a really interesting spaces today. I know Tristan, the Web3 world for a lot of people is going to be surprising for you. But before we talk about you, just kind of do a little intro. So again, my name's Hadi, aka Hadi's World on X or Twitter. I'm good friends with Tristan. Me and him have been down for 20 plus years. And we're excited to talk about Tristan's journey today into the Web3 space. But definitely want to introduce, of course, Luke, the man behind Moonwell. Luke, can you do a little quick intro for the people who may or may not know who you are?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name's Luke Youngblood, founding contributor at Moonwell. We've been building Moonwell for the last 2.5+ years, and couldn't be more excited to be here today. Prior to that, I worked at Coinbase for 3 years, helped them launch Ethereum staking and a bunch of other products there. We've been on Base since day one last year, over a year ago. There are so many exciting things happening on Base that I can't wait to share with all of you. I mean, for those that I see a lot of people in the room I know, like Base Messiah, Surfing DJ, Kuberon, others, Kimchi Block, Elliot. uh, Thanks for being here. Yeah, it's great to be here. And man, I just heard from Jesse that Base is going to do over 1 billion transactions today. It's the biggest day of transaction volume ever on Base. So I couldn't be more excited to have this space today and be here with all of you. I think it's going to be great. It's just a really exciting time with everything that's happening in the world with Bitcoin hitting all-time highs. So yeah, great to be here, Hadi.
The pump is real today, everybody. The pump is real. We've all been watching, I think, the whole market go up today. So I think it's the right day to have the conversation. I also want to throw out there that we're going to be taking kind of questions and stuff a little bit later on today throughout this kind of spaces. So guys, if you have questions or things you want to chat about, we're definitely going to give everybody an opportunity to be part of the discussion. But I think we just want to kick things off here with Tristan. I mean, I think for a lot of people, there's some curiosity about just yourself and who you are and kind of what brought you to crypto. So, I really asked that question for everybody, people who may or may not know you. What's an NBA player doing in the Web3 crypto world? Like, what's this all about for you?
I mean, for me, I've always been into finance and always, I'm the guy that always likes to educate. I mean, if you want to take it back from elementary school days, math was my favorite subject, right? So anything that comes to numbers and finance, I was always into it, right? So for me, I remember in terms of Web3 and hearing about crypto was back in 2017. A friend of mine from Toronto, we called him Shadow. He was telling me and my two best friends that were living with me at the time, like, hey, like, tell Tristan, like, you guys go to the club and you guys go on vacation and spend $10,000. Go buy some Bitcoin, right? And for me, hearing my friend tell me that, and me being so young, I was like, yeah, like okay, whatever, like. like, what is this? Like Bitcoin? Like, I was like, nah, like, I'm okay. I have my financial advisor. He's all pumping other financial institutions like Fidelity and stuff. And I was just young, right? And I think that's part of like the graduation and growing pains, right? I think for especially for us athletes, we're so used to having everyone kind of just do everything for us and we're not really taking charge. And I think that was just part of me being young and just really just focused on only basketball, right? And I think as I got older and you start to understand that there's basketball doesn't last forever. Father time is undefeated unless you're LeBron James, who feels like he's only getting better every year. You got to see what's next in life.
Facts.
And for me, I've always been the guy that always wants to pay it forward, right? Pay it forward and help people understand, right? I'm the guy on the team right now, like even our rookie, like I was telling him, like, do you even know, like, what does your portfolio look like? Like, what do you have in it? Like, and he didn't really know much. He's like, I don't know. I just let my financial guy just do it. I'm like, no, you got to educate yourself because that's how, like, the more empowered you are in your finance, the more you can take control because everyone knows about the ESPN 40, 30 for 30 about athletes going broke, right? And I think that's because we we as athletes, we're never, especially from a minority household, like we're never educated about finance, right? Our me, I'm first generation Canadian coming from a Jamaican background. Like my parents, worked 3, 4 jobs, but they've never were taught how to make wealth grow and how to, make your money grow. So for me, it was always something like, how can I change the narrative for not just myself, but for like people that walk and look like me, right? So with that being said, getting into Web3 space, I feel like it's another sector of where you can, build wealth management. And I've always had a knack for just financial literacy, right? So I think it's a great space. Met some incredible people, learned some incredible protocols. It's been nothing but an amazing experience. And then for me, it's like I want to teach my teammates. Like even on the plane today, one of the trainers came up and he's like, my Dogecoin's up, and he was super ecstatic and hyped. Like he's hyped, right? So like all that stuff,
Right.
I know that the word is spreading because when you have people in your locker room coming up to me and talking about Web3 and what they have, and they're excited, you're like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one thing you said there, and Luke, I think this kind of strikes me too, as somebody who's kind of really gotten into the space in the last year. There's this Nike commercial that was a few years ago, and the Nike commercial I think was like, it said yesterday, you said tomorrow, and like that was like the tagline, right? And it's just that idea that like you procrastinate on getting involved, and I think everybody feels that about anything in Web3, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. Like, man, if I had just bought it last week or if I had just started, then I would be in such a good place today. And I think that's kind of the mentality, Tristan, that I'm hearing from you of like, why not now, right? Like, why don't I get involved? Like, why don't I start? I'm at a good point in my career where, I want to start exploring outside of the sports world to see kind of what's next. So love to hear that. What drew you into crypto, Tristan? What was like, recently you obviously I know you for a long time and I've seen you just really become passionate about the space. Like, can you simplify it for me? Like, what's something that just drew you in? Like why crypto this summer? Like what kind of turned you on into the space?
I mean, Hattie, remember what happened last year when we were talking about it when you kind of was getting back into the space, right? With the whole the meme coins, right? I remember,
Right.
was it you and your wife, you were going to dinner and the first meme coin you bought was what, was a
You
book of
want you
memes,
want me
right?
you want me
So
to tell the story? Okay, I'll tell it.
yeah, you go ahead, let the
I'll,
people know,
Okay, I'll just tell
and I'll
everybody the
tell you my
story.
reaction.
I'll tell everybody the story for why I think Tristan got kind of excited about the space like me. So, and Luke, I think I shared this with you and Eli early on when we started talking. But just to kind of make the story really simple for everybody, in March of this year, I was a little bit involved in the NFT space. I know Tristan, me and you talked about that in 2021. I bought some cool NFTs. In Betweeners, they started a project. They were good friends of mine. The Dolce and Gabbana team, I bought their NFT, which is was interesting for a luxury brand to come out with. But then, after the world of NFTs kind of didn't take off the right way and it felt like there was a bear market, this March, it was my wife's birthday, and a friend of mine who was in the NFT space called me and he was like, yo, you need to buy Solana and put $1,000 into this meme coin. And I ended up putting $1,000 into this meme coin called Book a Meme. I leave to go to dinner for my wife's birthday and I keep checking my phone just out of curiosity. And I keep seeing the number go up from like 1,000 to 2,000 to 5,000 to 10,000. And I'm texting Tristan the whole time, like, dude, what the hell's going on? Like, I bought something called a meme coin. And so I think by 6 a.m. that night,
By the way, I'm like, here we go again. I'm like, here because I was all against the NFT. Like I'm the guy like I buy art in my house. I'm an art collector. So when he was telling me about NFTs, I'm like what? Just keep it on the monitor, and then like I have to keep my TV. Like I was just like, no, bro. Like just go buy some real art. So
I
now he comes to the meme coin. I'm like, oh, here we go again.
I'm a super DJ, and so I didn't listen to you. And I remember like when I woke up in the morning, I think it was at like $55,000. And for me at that point, it was just kind of like, holy shit, like what's going on in this space of not knowing any better. And I remember me and you talking about it. And again, I think we'll touch on this a little bit later, but for me, that was where my passion of Web3 was like reignited because I felt like there was something there. However, my energy was completely misguided because meme coins were like the gateway drug, and it's kind of was like the wrong thing to bring us into the space. But I think there's a really good kind of like, you know, thought process around that. But I feel like, and we're gonna talk about that, and I want to be clear that, this is not a meme coin chat, it's nothing like that, but it was the thing that caught our attention, right? It's kind of like, would you agree with that, Tristan? It was like the thing that caught our attention to get into the space of when there was like a bull run of meme coins. It's like we started hearing about
Of,
Web3
of,
again, right?
of course. Think about it. Of course. Listen, coming from my world and just everyday finance. So you go to the bank and they tell you, hey, you can make 4% on your money a year, and then you see a meme coin and it spikes 10x. Of course, it catch your attention, right? Because it's something that it's so foreign to us. So we're like, yo, this is like, how is this possible? Like how does this digital asset have that much power where it spike and jump that high that has that many people investing into it, right? And that's kind of like what caught our eye and our attention, right? So we're like, what is this really like,
Yeah, 100%. And like, so again, for everybody that's listening, I think this is actually kind of like the irony of Web3 and what's really funny to me about how worlds collide. So I think, Tristan, you gave everybody a really good background of how, as an athlete, you just got interested in this space. And we'll talk about where your interest went and how you've been able to legitimize it over the last 8 months to a year and being in the space. But what's interesting is like, what is an NBA player who grew up in sports, who's ignited by meme coins and interest in the space, and now I kind of want Luke. It would be great for you to talk about your entry into the space and your background, and obviously the credibility and the excitement behind what you've built in a technical way, and would love to just hear a little bit more from people that don't know you about your background in the space and how you've come to the space.
Yeah, well, first, let me just say that everything Tristan just said at the beginning about how he was passionate about learning about finance and improving his financial outcomes, and he didn't want to just, become another sports player that retired and had nothing. That really resonated with me because, I came from a humble upbringing as well, and I came from a, lower middle class family, and we didn't often have everything. My parents couldn't send me to a nice school or anything like that. So I kind of know where Tristan's head is at there. And it wasn't until later in my career, I've been a software engineer most of my life, but it wasn't until later in my career I actually learned how to save. I didn't even really start saving until I was about 35 or so. And that was, a hard lesson learned because when you're starting late and you haven't been saving as much as you should, you're behind already. There's that saying like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And so that really resonates with me about that, today is tomorrow, right? Or that Nike saying, right? Because I think we've all been there where we realize we have to kind of like become adults and improve our financial outcomes. We can't just keep spending, living from paycheck to paycheck. But I worked at Coinbase for a few years, and I also saw firsthand what happened, like when back in 2021 when Coinbase went public, and then all of the financial planners came into the company because they knew we were going to be having a lot of stock, and they basically all came to us. Probably it was probably a lot like I would imagine they come to you as an NBA player and they say, "Hey, just let us manage your money for you, and we'll charge you 1% of your net worth every year. And trust us, we'll put you in good options. We'll put you in stocks, we'll put you in bonds, and all these things, all these really high fee, complex things you don't really understand." And we started asking them questions. They came in and pitched to all the Coinbase employees. They had like these webinars where you would like dial in and watch a Zoom meeting, and I would ask them questions like, "What do you think about Bitcoin?" And because I was an early Bitcoiner and I started mining Bitcoin on my gaming PC back when I was, still working a 9 to 5 job. And before I was a startup founder, and so the financial planners had really bad answers. They were like, you don't want Bitcoin. It's too speculative. You'll lose all your money. And at the same time, they were trying to put me in these products that were like would pay 3 or 4% a year or had really high fees. And I just knew they didn't know what they were talking about, and they just wanted to, kind of extract value from us. And I'm sure the traditional financial system has so many hidden fees and complex products that you don't really understand. They're just like, trust us, we'll manage your money for you. But I charted a different path, and many of my friends at Coinbase also did the same, where we started playing with Web3. And first of all, it's cool to hear your stories about the memes and the NFTs, because for many people in crypto, like that's all they know is like speculation on memes or speculation on NFTs, and like, I'm going to buy this art project and it's either going to go to $1 million or it's going to go to zero, and I better sell it before it goes to zero. And so it's like you either win or you lose, and there's no in between. But what was really cool, and the reason why we started Moonwell, is because there's this whole world of on-chain finance and Web3 that people are not really aware of, where you don't have to lose so someone else can win. You know what I mean? It's not like a gambler's game. It's where everyone can win together because you're providing value to each other, to the ecosystem. Maybe you're supplying liquidity to a pool, and by doing that, you're making it so everyone else that trades in that pool has lower fees and lower slippage. So you're providing a benefit to the ecosystem, and then you get compensated in fees for that. So I think that's the kind of world that we wanted to share with everyone. And that's probably why when I first started meeting you guys, like that message really resonated with you. And it also, I feel like, even though we're in different worlds, we're very aligned on those same values of like wanting to build a system that is helpful to everyone, not extracting value from people.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, Luke, I think that's one of the things that, attracted us all to kind of come together and start talking Web3 is just that same ideology that you're sharing about wealth management and crypto. Tristan, can you tell me a little bit about, because I know this personally because I've been your friend for a long time, but your wealth management thought process of like, why you felt like you needed to take more control of your wealth. And I think that's an important thing because no matter what your portfolio looks like or what your financial terms look like, return is return, right? You can make return on $10, you can make return on $1 million, but return is return. And I think Tristan, even you just being more interested in controlling your own finances and trying to figure out passive income, even for me, not being an NBA player, resonated with me because I was like, man, what does my financial strategy look like? Like, what am I doing? What am I taking away? So TT, can you tell me a little bit about kind of that process for you of like why you wanted to be more active in your wealth management?
Yeah, I think it's what happened, and everyone probably went through it. Was COVID, right? Like what happened in COVID, and seeing my portfolio lose, seven figures in a matter of fucking 2 weeks. I was going apeshit. I was going crazy. I remember.
Is that wait, I gotta ask you, is that was that because I mean you never talked about this. So you obviously get like your, I guess, your ledgers or your things that talk about all your wealth. So during COVID, that's like a real thing. Like you logged in and it was like down. You were down like seven figures.
Yeah, I was down seven figures. I remember I was literally at my buddy's restaurant in Cleveland because when COVID happened, they shut down the NBA. So I'm literally in Cleveland for an extra 2 weeks, and I literally spent my birthday in my basement with just my two friends because everyone's like stay inside, da da da. So I like nothing to do. I'm either drinking tequila or I'm looking at my portfolio. So I'm on there and I'm seeing losing seven figures, and I remember I text my old financial advisor at the time, and I'm like, yo, like, what is going on? Like, and for me, like, I'm the type of person where I look at like my P&L, I look at every line, like my monthly statement, I look at every line. Like, I'm the type of guy where if I even get an Uber and if it doesn't match and one charge doesn't match, I'm calling right away to find out what's going on. I'm that guy, right? So when I see these numbers dropping, and I'm like, hold on, I worked my ass off to make this money and put myself in position to see it drop like this, like, and remember, like, I all I know is that, oh, it's because COVID. Everyone's stocks are down, everything's down. But I'm like, I don't know enough to really understand what that means, right? So for me, it was like, okay, this is a problem. The fact that I don't know exactly, like, yeah, I guess it's a world sickness and something crazy catastrophic is happening. But like, why did I not have a better protection or something to protect myself, or at least understand if something like this happens, weather the storm? Or so for me, it was like, nah, like I gotta like put myself more in the driver's seats and understand, and really like I gotta learn and take more control of my wealth, because if something like this could happen, I got to at least, you know, put money in different areas where something like this happens, I'm still protected because you still have, 5 or 6 different avenues of wealth that's generating money, right? So for me, that was like that COVID was really opened my eyes up, right? And I remember obviously when that happened, he definitely got fired. And I switched over to a different team. But I mean, listen, this is the reality. Listen, man, I'm that kind of guy. I'll wake up in the morning and how do you know? I'll text you at 6 a.m. my
Right.
thoughts. So like he heard me every fucking hour when I was I chewed him up. I gave him I gave him another hole he never knew he had.
But let me ask you this: when you're with those traditional financial managers, because I've never really had somebody doing investments. I'm not. I never did that. But when you're with those kind of financial managers, like, do you understand all the investments that they're doing, or like the honesty of it? Like, do you really know where they're putting your money, and do you believe in all those things, or is it more of like a trust thing where you just like trust the person because they come from a good background? Is like, what's the idea behind like traditional finance when you have managers like that?
I mean, when you have managers like this, the reality is that 95% of us athletes or celebrities that have these financial advisors, we're just trusting really a stranger based on a referral or based on someone we trust that you feel like has their money in order, that we're just taking their word for it, right? And that's such a crazy gamble if you think about life, right? Like for us as human beings, like we always want to be in control, right? We want to be in control of what college we go to, who we want to date, what kind of food we want to eat, what kind of clothes we want to put on, where we want to go on vacation. But it seems like when it comes to finance, it's the one area, the traditional finance, you have to basically trust a complete stranger and hope that their heart's in the right place to really want to see you succeed, right? And being with these people, you're gonna have situations where you're gonna have some good ones, you're gonna have some bad ones, like anything, right? And
Right.
they have their hidden fees that they take from you yearly, and all that stuff. So for me, when I left him and switched over to somebody else, I didn't even realize that my returns was yearly was less than what the S&P 500 was giving. If I took my money and put in S&P 500, I'd have better returns.
Right.
So, and I remember this.
Yeah.
He was he was the same gentleman who said, if I'm getting you anything less than 6% a year, you should fire me. And to come to look at it, I was getting less than 6%. So I should have fired his ass a long time ago, right? So it's just, but like, that's just because we're so used to just trusting people, right? So like these life experiences, like everyone goes to it, but I think guys are just, or people are just afraid to talk about it because they don't want to be embarrassed. But for me, it's like, in order for us to grow as a community, we have to be able to just put ourselves in a vulnerable position to explain, like, you're gonna have that one year where you get fucked, but then it's how do you bounce back from that, right? And what
Right.
tools you learn from that.
Yeah,
So
that
so
that
sorry.
happened to
Go,
me
go ahead.
too, honestly. Almost did, but I think I was lucky because, these financial planners came to Coinbase, and I was actually lucky because at Coinbase there were some smart people, even smart in TradFi. There's one guy at Coinbase that had a Slack channel called Social Financial Plan, and he was educating everyone on finance, on traditional finance. And he was one of these people that was all about FIRE. Have you ever heard of that? Financial independence, retire early. Have you guys heard of that term before? It's like
I have, yes.
if you save enough money where you can earn enough off the stock market, which is
Yeah.
average 10% a year,
Hmm.
then you don't have to work anymore. You can retire early and just go live your life. Now, that's not for me. I like to work. I like to build things, but for some people that sounds really appealing. And he was educating us on this stuff. So what he actually showed us that made a ton of sense was that you can make more money from an S&P 500 index fund, which is passively managed, that has maybe like 7 basis points in annual fees than you can on all of these complex actively managed products. And so when those financial planners came into Coinbase and they said, no, 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 you don't want to buy an index fund. You want to buy this actively managed stock fund that charges 100 basis points a year in fees, is 1% a year. You know, you we were like, no, that's a terrible. Why would I do that? We were educated enough, or at least some of us were educated enough to know that was a bad idea. But I could see how they take advantage of so many people on a daily basis. Like most people that are saving for retirement and working, whether they're athletes or not, they don't know if they're being steered into these complex products that have high fees. And then when you look at the
Right.
performance historically, you would have been better off just shoving it all in a fidelity account in an S&P 500 index fund and just forgetting about it, and just like you would just keep growing every year, right?
Luke, that's kind of like Tristan. I got a question for you. So, because Luke, that's interesting that you say that because I wonder, Tristan, did you suffer the same thing? Like when you brought up Bitcoin to a financial advisor in during that time post COVID, like what was their response? Like how does a financial manager perceive Web3 or crypto at that point? Like what were you told? Did you ever bring it up? I don't know.
No, no, I brought it up, and I remember, and it's, it's so funny. Obviously, I won't say their name just out of respect, and they're big players in the game. But I remember I brought up to them about like Bitcoin, and this was during like probably 2021. So right after, when I guess the first year after COVID, I remember that's when I signed to the Celtics. I remember I brought up to them like, hey, like this was a newer team, and I was like, hey, I want to get into Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin, and that's when you know the numbers were down. They're like, no, we don't believe in it. It's not tangible. We manage trillions of dollars for over 50 countries. So like just trust us. We know what we're doing. We're public, our company's publicly traded. So obviously, if you guys put the dots together, you guys might have a feel of know what I'm talking about, but I won't say their name. But them dismissing that and telling me I'm crazy or it's not a good idea. I was like, okay, cool. And then obviously, come to find out, you know, months later, come to find out that they've been buying it up, buying all the Bitcoin and all that,
That's crazy.
and for me, it was like, that's when the light bulb went off, right? I think that's like really when, like, see, I'm the type of person, like, especially because like where I'm from, it's like, and it's the term that we use from Toronto, like you can't finagle me, right? Like I've been around all the biggest pretenders, people that try to sell you a dream, to always try to pull the wool over your eye, right? So it felt like one of those moments, like I was back in Toronto, and a guy's trying to finesse me. And when I seen what they were doing, I was like, okay, clearly I was onto something, but because it wasn't under their umbrella where they can't eat off it, they're gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna push it away and say, screw that, we're not doing that. But I bet you if I called them now and said it, they're like, yeah, we have this available. We have this fund going. Da da da. Could put it in. So I was like, oh, okay. So when it's beneficial for you guys are all into it. But when it's not, then you guys tell me I'm crazy and I need to go. Basically, sad to say, like the shut up and dribble mentality.
Yeah. No, that I mean that's a crazy approach when I think about it, Luke, both your and Tristan's kind of experience. It's I think what people probably still suffer to this day, where it's like you're told, like you have this idea that getting into the space is good, and you're interested in something, and then you just suffer from people who feel like they're qualified to give you an opinion. And I think we all suffer from that, right? When any of us go and talk about crypto or Web3 or on chain and putting money, I mean, I think there's just such a negative connotation that comes with that. It's almost like sometimes it's taboo unless they get the space. And so when you meet people that are into Web3 and you talk to them about it, you almost feel comforted that like this person understands it. And when you don't, and you tell a parent or a cousin or a friend, they think you're like intrinsically doing something wrong, right? Sometimes it's like this feeling of like, are you sure you're not like getting involved in a scam? Like it's this weird kind of ideology behind it. I think Tristan, like it's a great time to kind of also talk through it. I'm just thinking about this, kind of how we got pushed into the space, and what your stance has been. So I mean, look, I'll come clean and be honest and take the heat on this one. But like, so when I got into meme coins, and I was kind of doing okay gambling meme coins, I mean, I had no other concept or idea that there was a way to make money in Web3 outside of meme coins. I mean, I thought you either like hold Solana or Ethereum or Base, Base doesn't have a token, but you hold some sort of, coin, and then you just pray that it does well, or you're gamble meme coins all day. And so, speaking from my personal background, for everybody that's listening, I was telling Tristan about these meme coins all day long. And then I started watching all these celebrities launch meme coins, and pretty much rug people, or screw them over in the process, or you could see all of a sudden the charts would be doing well and then it would just completely dip. And so I had this harebrained idea, horrible idea, where I went to Tristan and I was like, you need to do a meme coin, but do it the right way. Like, don't rug people, like be honest, like launch the I think we had like some crazy names for it, like championship coin or whatever it was going to be. And I think I really convinced you probably a few months in that we need to do a coin, but do it the right way. And I remember like not feeling great about trying to convince you to do that, and be part of the space. But then I remember, the first thing you said, which I really respect, TT, and I don't know if I've ever really talked to you about this, but I remember you saying, I'm down to do something like this, but let's get on the phone with some smart people first in the space and see what they have to say. And I remember we had a call we just started calling people. I remember, Tristan, you started calling people in Web3 that were just like you had a connection to, or you were cool with. And I remember them kind of right away jumping on a call saying, listen, you can do a meme coin if you choose to, but just know that you're going to be like earning money on the back of somebody who's losing money. And that person, because you're a celebrity or somebody of influence, is going to be intrinsically losing and you're going to be winning. And like, do you want to be part of that equation? Tristan, can you talk a little bit about just your thoughts about like you were going to launch a meme coin and then really why you realized that was the complete wrong part of the space for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, yeah, you definitely, I mean, yeah, you were talking about it. Remember, we saw like all these celebrities like just basically fucking people over, right? And for me, like being an athlete, I think it's like there's being I think being an athlete it's a different and it's a special responsibility because I think for us we're so community based, and I think for us as athletes, especially basketball, I can say is that we're very heavily involved in our communities, whether it's doing turkey drives or doing, back to school or having, the Make a Wish. Like we're so, I think the NBA has done such a good job keeping us involved in the community. So for me, it was like, it was, at the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is be eating at a steakhouse and having someone come up to me and be like, hey man, your coin fucked me over. And I went from, like, I used money that I could have used for my family vacation, and now I'm with nothing, right? So that's just a shitty feeling. And I think with us, being able to talk to other people that are in the Web3 space and some OGs in the space, and kind of just telling and telling them at the end of the day, like I want to come into space to help, and I want to come into space and onboard people from my walk of life that don't understand, because I think this is such a I look at it as it's like the world is, let's say pretend the world's it's 100% pot, right? I think for Web3, I think the Web3 world is about, maybe in terms of capacity, in terms of like the population, I think it's about, almost the cup is almost getting to the brim in terms of more people getting into that. But for my side of the world, it's only at like 10%, right? And I think for me, I was like, why not be that vessel or that person that people can relate to, that could kind of onboard them and teach them how to basically take back control of your finance, right? And I think, you know, I'm glad we didn't do a meme coin, and then we really took the time to really think about it. And I think a lot of these other celebrities don't really take the time to think about it, or don't really ask people, because they just try to make a quick lick, or whoever's advising them has their own hidden agendas, right? So for us, it was more so like, how can we just help the space and give the space and not take away? And I think that's something that people will appreciate, because it's different than the rest of the celebrities that have been in the space.
Yeah, I have to say, Tristan, when we first started talking to you a few months back and just getting to know each other, I was really impressed by how thoughtful you and Hadi were because, many celebrities in the space have come and gone and they've, done exactly what a lot of them have done, dumped on their followers, right? And you've spent, 13, 14 years as a professional NBA player. You've mastered your craft. You've had an NBA championship. You've clearly had to work really hard to get where you are in life, right? And I respect that so much about you because, there's so many builders in the space in Web3 that are like that, but on a technical level, everyone has to master their craft. You have to put in that 10,000 hours or more in your case, probably, to really succeed and become great in life. And you had this thoughtful approach where you realized that you didn't want to throw all that away for a quick buck, and also just the fact that, you're really genuine and you really care about your followers and your fans. You don't want them to be hurt by your actions. And you've had a Nike sponsorship for 14 years. I mean, that says a lot. Your reputation is everything in this space. And also, I think, to your credit, the NBA does a great job of giving back to the communities because, we're just starting to do this in crypto. We're not very good at it yet. We just started donating to political action committees and stuff like that. But, we're doing a little bit. I mean, I do have to credit Circle, for example. Circle has actually developed some curriculum for local high schools. And I've been teaching a couple classes for junior achievement of Northern California. These are entrepreneurship classes from barter to Bitcoin, the history of money, and we kind of teach people about the history of money and how it started when people bartered before they had coins, and how it grew into the digital dollar that we have today and beyond. Bitcoin and USDC and beyond. And I have to say, like, it's just a start, but I think it's really important for those of us that have been successful in whatever area we are to kind of give back a little bit. And so that meant a lot to me, and that really spoke to me that, like, when we first started working together, we were really values aligned. Like, you have this thoughtful approach. You don't want to dump on your fans. And we also want to build something that's going to help people in the world to do better things with their life, right? We don't want to build something that is just like going to end up dumping memes on people that are going to lose all their money. We want to build something that is helping people build a better tomorrow for themselves and their loved ones. So that really resonated with me. And, I couldn't be more happy about, as we've gotten to know you better, you and Hadi, like how much you are, you care about the space and that you were really thoughtful about how you got into it. And you didn't want to just, make a quick buck. And that's, I think, why on-chain finance and like DeFi appeals to you. And so, kudos to, I just think it's a great, it's
Uh,
really great to hear this.
really
Nah,
quickly, if I could, Luke,
yeah, go ahead.
or go on. Yeah, I
No,
just
go
want
ahead.
to say, so we're talking about meme coins. We're talking about like people's like first entry into the space, right? Think about the impact of someone who they hear about a meme coin, they hear about NFT, and they get rugged, they get burned. That turns them off to the space completely for, maybe many years, maybe they never come back. So it just excites me that, Tristan is leveraging his platform not to shill a meme coin that could go to zero, but to actually educate people on the power of on-chain finance, on the power of compound interest, how to build your tomorrow and really, create these powerful positive experiences for people that you're just probably not going to get with a speculative meme coin or NFT. So
E-
kudos,
E-
Tristan.
Eli, I love that you brought that up. So, I mean, I kind of want to round out the thought process of where we went next after not doing a meme coin for people, and so everybody understands too. Me and Tristan actually own a business together. We own a marketing agency that we've had for the last almost decade now, which is a little outside of this business. So that's why me and him have always kind of worked together. So when we started, he started this journey into Web3. It's like we kind of organically just started it together. And I kind of want to round out where we've ended up and why this conversation's all happening. So, rather than doing a meme coin, which we both realized was the complete wrong way to go about things, we realized that there was an opportunity for us to give back to the space, right? Exactly what you're saying, Eli, where, our biggest feedback when we talk to really smart people was that when celebrities get into the Web3 crypto world, they just take and they run away to your point and they never come back and it leaves everybody with a bad taste in their mouth. And that's not what we wanted to do. So Tristan, a couple years ago, has started hosting basketball bits. So he was last year, I believe, Tristan was actually on ESPN in between playing for the Lakers, and he was like doing analysts for basketball games. And he was so good at doing it. Like Tristan's just a natural speaker. I remember ESPN went to him with an offer and was like, "Stop playing basketball and come do this full time." Damn near. And I know he had like some opportunities to dive deeper into the space. But again, shout out to Tristan, 14 years in the NBA. The NBA had a different plan for him. But I remember that the idea of wanting to host something was always there for Tristan. And me and him always talked about like, why don't you start a basketball podcast? And he was just like, man, the space is crowded. Like it doesn't, I don't know if I want to just be doing what everybody's doing. And I remember when we had this kind of like epiphany moment and aha moment, we realized we weren't going to do a meme coin, but we learned about like blockchain and we learned about Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum and the way things were going up. And we started to learn a little bit about DeFi. We thought about how long it took us just to get to that point and how there wasn't any education around it. And I remember Tristan called me and he was like, I want to do a crypto podcast. And I like initially I was pretty kind of hesitant and being like, are you sure? Like this is, and he was like, I want to learn and I want to do this. And so I remember there was like a 2 month period where these mentors that we had reached out to about the meme coin put Tristan on literally like for people that don't know, he was literally on like a university study plan with crypto tutors every night, learning everything from how does blockchain work, what are the different L1s and L2s and how does DeFi work, how does yielding work, and there were so many things that I remember you were learning, and I would jump on these calls at 10, 11 o'clock, at the start of your training camp and listening to all these things. And I know that obviously from there we started this incredible podcast, which we really just put out a pilot episode. But for everybody that kind of wants to understand where this journey has gone for Tristan and myself, it's gone into a podcast. So the podcast is called Crypto Courtside. There's an episode out on YouTube right now. You can literally just search it, Courtside Crypto. Tristan Thompson, put it in YouTube, and it'll pop up. But I think that's kind of important for everybody to understand. Like, what I respect about you, Tristan, is there wasn't a need for like, I need a meme coin or I need this like insane way to get rich quick in the space. It was just about like how we started off was just education, right? And I think people need to kind of understand and see that side of you. And I know that coming this November, we're going to start dropping episodes, and that's kind of how the how our journey's been going, and we've been connecting with brilliant people, like Luke and Eli and people who've created incredible platforms. I think the one thing that we realized, Tristan, that you wanted to do in the space when me and you were talking about it was not only did you want to be a host and have education, but you also wanted to be like this investor and kind of be part of companies and part of growth and not part of like meme coins and shitty things. So can you tell me a little bit about how you became part of Moonwell and what your passion was and why a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, I think for me it was like you said, just about the podcast, like definitely wanting to, help and educate and give back to the space. I think that is something that's crucial. And I think that's just who I am in general, just as a person. Though I've always given back to my community. I always want to help elevate everyone else, right? I think I have the mindset that at a dinner table, I don't want to be the only king at the table. I want to be at a table with 14 other kings, right? So, however I can help do that, that's what I want to do. And in terms of Moonwell, like, I invested in it, and I think what they're doing is great. I think when you look at, for myself, I'm always about aligning myself with the right people, right? People that are A1, people that are genuine, and talking to Luke and really getting to know him on a personal human being level. I think that's something that I think it was a good feeling for me, right? I think for me, it's about who can I go to war with, and I can vouch for the same way they can vouch for me, right? So with Moonwell, it's like I think it's a great platform. Listen, you're essentially, you're lending stable coins or BTC or ETH into safe vaults, and you can lend, and you can also borrow against. And I think it's something for especially a guy like myself who's hasn't been in Web3 since 2015 and 2002. Like, I'm more at the earlier stages compared to probably most people in that are listening and tuning in. It's a great way to continue to understand and get yourself more on board on chain, right? So for me, it was a no brainer, and it's something that I believe in. And like you said, Hattie, like as you get into this space, you're gonna align yourself with people and companies that you feel that can help the space. But also for me, it's like how can I help? My whole goal is like how can I help the the guy that works at the concession stand at the arena? How can I help him instead of him going to, you know, H&R Block or one of those places to go take his, bi-weekly check to make money? Why not help him or show him how to open a wallet and basically, use DeFi to create this passive income, right? So like for me, that's like my goal in all this, right? Like how can I help the people that I see each and every day that I run into that work their ass off to provide for their family? How can I give them an avenue? I'm not telling them what to do, but give them just the tools, and they make their own decision on how they can help better off their family.
Yeah,
It's
a
so
hundred.
inspiring.
Go ahead, Luke. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's so inspiring. And honestly, I think for many of us, to kind of like tie it back to Bitcoin, I think for many of us that have been in the space for a while, we've seen how Bitcoin is like the store of value. And as the world changes so much, just in the last week, the world is changing dramatically. Governments are printing more and more money. Global liquidity is increasing. China is printing money. The U.S. is printing money. Everyone is printing money, and so for those of us that have been so impacted by inflation, and for those of us that are well off, we haven't been as negatively impacted as ordinary people have. But groceries are twice as expensive as they were a few years ago, and that really impacts everyday people like my family members and friends on a daily basis. And so if I think about like how they can help save and improve their tomorrow, it's really going to be, I think people are going to think of Bitcoin as that retirement asset. You're going to want to hold a little bit of it. It'll be like your 401k, and but you're not going to want to sell it because it'll probably be worth more in 5 or 10 years than it is today. And then I think for those of us that work and transact in the daily world, stable coins are how we're going to get paid and how we're going to pay our bills and how we're going to pay each other or split a bill when we go to a restaurant or something like that. And I just think of this new world where there, governments everywhere are going to inflate away our cash, but Bitcoin is the store of value, this digital gold, if you will. And so what I think, and this is why we build Moonwell and why it's for everyone, is because we're creating a platform where you can save and borrow. You can save your gold or your digital gold, right, your Bitcoin, and then you can borrow stables against it. So if you wanted to start a small business or if you wanted to pay tuition for college, you have the tools that up until now only the ultra wealthy had. It's not like everyone can just go borrow against their retirement plan and go start a small business, right? And then even more importantly, for those of us that don't live in America or Europe or places with a good banking system, places like Brazil, where some of our developers live, only 40% of the people, or sorry, 40% of the people don't have a bank account in Brazil. So they want to transact in stable coins, in digital dollars, USD coin. And so that's really inspiring to me. And I think, Tristan, it's going to be incredible for you to share this message with your audience, that they can do more with what they already have, that they can borrow against their Bitcoin. They don't have to sell it. They can borrow against it to start a small business, to improve their life, and then they can save, and save for their future. And so we've all had to kind of learn the hard way how to kind of improve our financial outcomes in the future. And you've done a great job of it. I think on a personal level, I admire you because not very many of your peers are actually taking the time. But I also understand why, and I don't blame them, because it's the same thing in software. We're all busy, we're working really long hours. Very few of us have time to like look at our portfolio, look at our bank accounts, make sure we're not wasting money where we shouldn't. I'm kind of like you though. I'm the guy that if I get charged $2 more for an Uber, I'll be calling them up, and I'll be like asking them to refund it back. So maybe we have that in common.
Nah, Luke, I think that's, I mean, what you're saying is, for me and Tristan, I remember, was like what really drew us to Moonwell. It was the simplicity and, you know, ease of use of people being able to get into it. Because I think, the one of the things that me and Tristan had found, we went to Singapore for Token 49 this year, which is a whole nother podcast, by the way, one day. But we I don't want to say too much here, but we went to Singapore, and we went to Singapore, we met all these people, and so many times we'd be talking to protocols, or specifically in DeFi and strategy. And a lot of these guys, to actually onboard into their system seemed like, for us, was a little bit of a struggle to understand. So we could only imagine how they explain this to the average consumer. Luke, with you and what you've created with Moonwell, there's such a use of simplicity, like a simplicity of just onboarding. Can you tell somebody who is listening, everybody, if I've got $1,000 in my Wells Fargo or Chase account, like how simple is it for me to, if I chose to, onboard on chain and be part of Moonwell? What is the process like?
So first of all, I will say we still have more work to do. So it's not perfect yet, but we're really trying hard. And every day, things are getting easier and easier. So for example, Coinbase just announced a partnership with Visa. So you'll be able to on-ramp from a Visa debit card. So if you have like a Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase checking account that's paying you 0% interest, you'll be able to onboard with Coinbase on-ramp and just send $500 into Moonwell in stablecoins. It'll be USD coin. And then you can put it in one of our vaults, and then you can start earning a lending rate. For our vault curators will lend it out to blue chip markets like CBBTC, which is Bitcoin, and Ethereum, and other markets. And so that's it, one, that's a really powerful thing. But I think even more importantly, in the future, we're going to start to see, in the very near future, we're going to start to see off ramps as well. So the on ramps are one thing we have to solve, and Coinbase and Circle and Visa and Stripe and all these companies are solving that problem. And then the off ramps are, we're starting to see that happen as well. I just saw an announcement just today that there's now, Stripe is now integrating USDC into all their merchant terminals. So you'll be able to pay with USD coin from your wallet pretty soon. And the cool thing about that is that the merchant fee is only 0.35%, which is like almost 10% of what it normally costs a merchant to swipe. So if you think about like when we shop in the daily world every day, whether you're buying groceries in the store or you're buying online, the merchant's getting charged about 2 to 3% for every transaction. And so that's a hidden tax that all of us pay, whether we realize it or not. The merchants pass that on to us. But with these new stablecoin off ramps, with Stripe and Coinbase and this partnership in Circle, it's going to become very inexpensive for merchants to accept USD coin as payments. And I think that's going to change everything, because the merchants will start to pass those savings along to us as consumers. So you can imagine getting a couple percent off your purchase if you use USD coin instead of a Visa to pay. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity there. But I will admit, we're still in the early days. Probably the easiest way to on ramp is just to get a Coinbase account, and you can on ramp very easily from Coinbase. We have a feature called Magic Spend that will let you take Ethereum from your Coinbase account, go directly into Moonwell. But we're still working on improving that. We've got to make it super easy. We now have passkey wallets where you can get a wallet in about 30 seconds without installing any apps or extensions, without having to back up a seed phrase. And we now sponsor gas for our users through Coinbase. And so we're just trying to remove all those friction points. It used to be when you try to get a friend or a family member to use on-chain finance for the first time, they had to download a wallet, they had to back up the recovery phrase, they had to go buy ETH just to pay for gas. All those things are starting to go away. And so I think in the coming months, you'll start to see even more and more, really nice frictionless ways to kind of use on-chain finance. And we're really excited about it.
No, that's and Luke, that's exactly what, kind of I remember me and Tristan were looking at. It was just like the simplicity of, going from Coinbase right onto Moonwell without kind of losing your shirt, right? Because a lot of times even just on ramping, there's so many, to your point, so many hidden things you got to deal with. So I love that about Moonwell. I mean, again, for everybody that's listening, do your own research, log in, look at the how-tos, DM Luke, drive him crazy like I do all day. But you could obviously hit me in TT too. We could always point you the right direction if anybody's actually looking at kind of moving on stuff like that. But I think that's great. And guys, I know we've touched on a lot today, but I know there's a lot of people here in the lobby. Shout out to our guy Chris. We see Chris in there. Chris, what up? But if anybody has questions, I think we should take a few questions. I know we got a few minutes left. Luke, TT, if you guys are down, would love to have some people jump in and start sharing some of their thoughts about what they're hearing, and if they have any just thoughts or comments or whatever. I don't know. I think we should just have a little powwow. So imagine if you,
So
Eli, if
Sounds
you
good.
hear people, can you bring them up?
That's
Yeah, just
good.
request to speak, guys, and we'll bring you up.
Let's see. We got any
Don't be shy.
questions
Don't
here?
be shy.
Don't be shy, guys. If you wanna dive in, now's your opportunity. We'll take you up. You know what? I have a question. I'll start it if nobody wants to jump in yet, or if we got some shy people in the audience. Guys, I'm literally sitting here staring at my laptop and watching Bitcoin absolutely rip. 81,300 right now and moving up. We all saw obviously the election last week, and for whatever that's worth, whether you're Democrat or Republican, irrelevant. But obviously there was a winner, and clearly he has been very bullish for crypto. I asked Luke this first, and then Tristan, you after. Where do you guys see the market going? Like, what do you think this means for crypto in general? Like, I know everybody's kind of got an opinion here, but what do you guys think is going to happen here?
yeah, first of all, let me just say that the last 4 years have been really challenging for the crypto space because we actually thought Gensler was going to be really good for the space. He taught Bitcoin at MIT, so we thought he was actually pro Bitcoin, but it turns out he was very let's say hostile to crypto. So we've had this regulatory onslaught in the industry, and I think it's required all of us to get really smart. And these the Fair Shake Pack and other Stand with Crypto, other organizations have really like sprung up to kind of help educate our lawmakers on why crypto is important. 52 million Americans hold crypto, and crypto is not should not be a partisan issue, right? It should be something that's just like the internet, right? The internet isn't like blue team or red team. The internet is just a tool that we all use to improve our daily lives. So it was really kind of shocking to us how in the last few years crypto became a partisan issue, or it seemed to, anyways. And so the election was really unexpected because I think everyone thought it was a coin toss and it ended up going completely the other direction. But what that means is that now there's pretty clear regulatory clarity. I mean, Trump has announced that he wants to start a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I think, I don't know if anyone listened to some of the talking points at the Bitcoin conference in Tennessee a few months back, but basically, it sounds like the industry is going to basically get everything we've been asking for. We're going to get regulatory clarity. We're going to get a stablecoin bill next year, probably. And countries, including the United States, are going to start acquiring Bitcoin for their reserves. And so, my theory, and this is just a theory. I mean, obviously, this is speculation, so please, don't take it as gospel truth or anything. But my theory is that Bitcoin is going to continue to rip, and we're going to go up above 100K, maybe as soon as early next year, or even before end of year. It seems like everyone is buying right now and there's euphoria. Obviously, like there's a lot of risk there because, we could get too euphoric too easily, or so sorry, too early. And then I also think that like as, this is typically what happens in markets, right? In crypto markets, the majors like Bitcoin and Ethereum rip for a while, which they're doing right now. And then as they sort of reach new highs, then the rotation comes into alts. And I think what you're starting to see already is like the on-chain finance alts are starting to rip too because people are anticipating a future where there is regulatory clarity around DeFi and on-chain finance, and that's really exciting to me. Obviously we've been building in the space for quite a while. We've been trying our best to stay on the right side of the law. We pay a lot of money in legal fees to actually make sure that we're compliant with all the regulation, but it's very expensive and it's a huge cost of doing business. I mean, for a project like Moonwell, I think the Moonwell Foundation spends more on legal fees than they do on product and engineering. So it is quite a big cost. You think about that other countries, like if you're building in Asia, like in Singapore or Hong Kong, you don't have those costs. So I just think this is going to bring regulatory clarity to the entire industry, and now we're going to finally see what can happen in a bull market when there is regulatory clarity and there's clear rules of the road for how builders like us can build in the space. So I'm really excited. I don't know, Tristan, what's your prediction?
I mean, yeah, I think it's gonna go BTC go 100K. I think Bitcoin's gonna go there. I think, you know, like you said, I watched bits of the Trump's when he was in down in Nashville in Tennessee talking about crypto and Bitcoin. I think he understands that the world's changing, right? I think, as a country, as America, right? It's always it's about power, right? And I think we got to be ahead of the curve than be trying to catch up. And I think his team understands that, and they understand the value behind that. And I think what you even said in terms of like, the reserves printing more money, so the dollar's becoming less. I mean, listen, me as a Canadian, I'll give you a prime example. When I was, 15, going to high school in Newark, New Jersey, a dollar American was almost, $2 Canadian. Now it's, a dollar American is only 125 Canadian. Like, it shows you that the currency is going down, and that's essentially an issue, right? And in order for America to keep its dominance, you got to be dominant in all spectrums, right? And I think he understands what the other, like you said, with other countries, they don't have those regulations, they don't have those rules. So for us to keep our dominance and power as a nation, we have to make sure we cover all bases and all assets, right? So I think he understands it. And I think for us that are in the Web3 space, it's a good feeling to know that his team genuinely is understands that and wants to grow crypto in America.
Nah, Tristan, I agree with you too. Luke, I'm gonna give my opinion here too, but I just echo your guys' sentiments. I see a full bull run. I think that Gary Gensler was not good for crypto. It seems like there's a lot of good crypto people coming in to office here in the U.S. and realistically, when I see what's happening in countries like in the UAE and they're basically turning stablecoin into tradable assets within a bank,
Like
it's
Apple
like
Pay. You could do like
yeah,
Apple
like
Pay.
hundred
Like,
percent,
come
like
on,
like
like that's amazing.
yeah, like you should be able to, you should be able to on ramp your and off ramp your Bitcoin right to a bank without any BS. So I hope that those things start to happen and we see good things happening. We got a couple questions here. Yo, Eli, I saw Jeff Malco also put his hand up. Can we bring him up? But Elliot has been waiting very patiently. Would love to take kind of a couple questions. Shout out to our guy Staff. See him in here too. Staff, now's your time to ask a question so you don't have to call me interested and bug us later. Don't be
Wagwan
shy, man.
staff.
Elliot, what's up, man?
Awesome. Thank you guys for hosting. I just want to say it's really awesome seeing you, Tristan, and Hadi getting involved here, because I feel like, there's just really good energy. You guys are trying to play the long game and try and find ways to add value to the community versus just extracting. And I feel like, I've been a contributor to Moonwell through Solidity Labs for the past year, and I just have to say that, like, Luke is super high integrity, and the whole Moonwell team, Eli as well. So I just love to see more people being brought into the fold, and I'm looking forward to what we all build together.
That's great, man. Appreciate the kind words.
And I
TC, I know you
appreciate it.
probably feel the same way.
No, for sure. Like we're just trying to help the space, and I appreciate, people in the Web3 space appreciating that and seeing that, because I think that's how we're going to build this community, right? That's what the goal is, right? To build a bigger community and help everyone where we all feel like we're in a position to win.
I think we got a bunch of other questions. People are not being shy anymore. Eli, can we bring some other people up here? I feel like I saw a few hands.
Yeah, I think just your average was the first to be brought up, so if we could take his question first.
Cool, let's do it. Just your average. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for taking my questions. So I've been following Moonwell since it was originally available through Aerodrome, because I've been holding Aerodrome for a while now. And I just wanted to wait until, and probably a lot of people felt this way, they wanted to wait till we got the big Coinbase listing. I know it was inevitable because of Luke's background with Coinbase, but when you're investing as much money as I have, 6 figures into Moonwell, you just want that assurity factor. And that goes into my question that a lot of people I'm sure have, that, this is all new to the space with the lending, not only just stable coins, but lending your coins, like taking Aerodrome and lending it on Moonwell, or your Moonwell coins and lending it on Moonwell to get paid interest. And of course, with stable coins, you're not going to have the deflationary risks associated with it, right? But I think there's a lot of people that need clarity on, hey, if I take my Aerodrome or my Brett coins or whatever it may be from base, and I lend them and stake them on Moonwell, what are my risks? Like, is it safe? Like, is my money just always going to be here? If I got like 100 grand, I'm going to make whatever my interest rate is at that time. Or if the price of the coin goes down or up, am I going to be losing my original position that I put into this to earn interest?
Hey, it's a great question, and thanks for supporting us. Let me try to take this one. So first of all, I can tell you from firsthand experience, and Elliot can as well. Thank you for being a contributor to Moonwell over the last year plus, Elliot. We take smart contract risks extremely seriously, and so we have a defense in depth approach to security. So first of all, every smart contract system in the entire Moonwell ecosystem is audited at least once. And in many cases, like our core systems have had multiple audits and even a competitive audit where you get thousands of security researchers globally looking at your contracts. In fact, Code Arena had a $140,000 prize pool last year before we launched on base to do a competitive audit. And so, I'm proud to say that in over 2.5 years of operation, Moonwell has never lost funds due to a smart contract hack or vulnerability. And so that's a track record we take extremely seriously. But we have we also have a bug bounty through Immunify up to $250,000 that security researchers can get paid for reporting any vulnerabilities rather than hacking, right? So there's a whole team of researchers out there that will get compensated, up to $250,000 if they find a vulnerability for disclosing it responsibly to us so we can patch it before it actually results in a loss of funds. And then third, I would just say that, we take a really rigorous approach to contract upgrades, and we never upgrade systems without auditing all the changes first. Even if it's just one line of code, it goes through another audit. And so Halborn Security is on retainer full-time for Moonwell. They have a security advisory as a service that allows us to get audits on anything without having to wait 6 to 8 weeks in a queue waiting for an audit. Then we also take Web 2 security very seriously. So a lot of protocols and apps have had their front ends compromised or their DNS compromised, and that's led to loss of funds. If people connect to a malicious website, it might drain their wallet, right? So I'm also happy to report in over 2.5 years of operation, we've never had a compromise of our website or DNS infrastructure or our social media accounts or Discord. So anyways, I can just tell you we take it very seriously, and everyone in the Moonwell community is very engaged when it comes to security.
All
I
right.
did want to address one other thing about the risks, though. I think that's important. So there are risks when you use money markets, right? I think, for example, there's liquidity risk, right? If you are lending your coins out, then and they're borrowed, you might not be able to withdraw your coins right away if they're borrowed out. In order to manage the risk, though, Gauntlet is the active risk manager for the Moonwell community, and they manage that risk by adjusting supply caps and borrow caps to ensure there's adequate liquidity in the markets. But there are no real guarantees, and they do their best to adjust risk parameters, and that's why there's a lot of governance proposals related to risk parameters to make sure that the markets are not introducing market risk. We should probably do a better job, but if you read our docs, there are a lot of good information out there about what the risks are. So we can always improve disclosures, but I think it's important for people to be aware of the risks of using money markets.
Luke, thanks for answering that. Hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, and then Luke, obviously what you're saying, I mean, like, I'm not gonna try to talk about, the way you've explained it being the founder of your company, but obviously, I know in DeFi there's low risk, medium risk, and high risk. So I mean, everybody do your own research, kind of figure it out. Let's take a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up. I know we're running a little over time, but there's some people that have been waiting patiently. So Eli, can we bring up one or two
Yep.
more?
Yeah, we got Jeff and Shusan on the stage. So Jeff, you want to go first real quick?
Yeah, fantastic product. I use it pretty often now. Congratulations on everything, guys. I just wanted to ask about in terms of like more lending pairs and like, the spread on the APYs. Like, like for Arrow example, it's like 4.7 versus 10.3%, borrow and lend. Like what kind of like dictates that spread? And the one other thing I want to ask is like in terms of like, there's like a 1 week kind of cool down in terms of like staking well. I also, and again, I don't know how you guys are going to build out in terms of the borrow and lend in the future, but I always thought like it would be interesting for like an instant liquidity option where you get a lower APY, a 1 week lockup, and a 1 month lockup in terms of like the tiers of the APY for various lends. I think that's a super interesting concept as well. So yeah, I was just curious about that spread and what you guys are, thinking about adding in terms of, future potential borrow and lend tokens in the future. Thanks.
It's a great question. So the spread between what interest a lender earns and the interest rate that a borrower pays, that's called the reserve factor, and that's basically set by the risk manager by Gauntlet. And the reason why it's higher on some markets like Arrow is because those assets are more volatile, sorry. The
Mhm.
price of Arrow tends to fluctuate up and down more frequently than a blue chip asset like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so they will have a different interest rate model and a different reserve factor, and that's just designed to kind of minimize risk in the protocol. So that spread is actually kept in the protocol as reserves, and it adds extra liquidity to the market so that
Interesting.
people can withdraw, or people are more likely to be able to withdraw. If there's a spike in borrowing demand, which there has been from time to time on Aerodrome, the interest rates can get extremely high. But that also encourages borrowers to repay, and it also kind of helps build more liquidity and reserves in the protocol so that if a lot of people try to withdraw or a lot of people try to borrow, there's more liquidity to borrow. So it is kind of a function of risk management, and I'm not as much of an expert as Gauntlet is. I mean, this is clearly they're experts at this. They've been managing risk in Moonwell for 2.5 years plus now. So yeah, that's a really, and then they perform a really vital function, I would say. And they're a key part of our community. You can read their market updates in our forums, and I encourage you to do so because they provide a lot of information about like why they're adjusting risk parameters, what the market conditions are. But to the second part of your question about could people earn a different like interest rate for like a fixed yield if they were committed to a certain time period. So while Moonwell protocol doesn't really have that capability built into the smart contracts, there are other systems like Pendle that are and Strata and others that build fixed yield products on top of Moonwell markets because DeFi is like money Legos. You can build products on top of each other that integrate with Moonwell. And so there are already options where you can get like a guaranteed fixed rate for a specific period of time. And I think Pendle is coming to base really soon, but there's already one called, I think it's Strata. I might have that wrong. Eli, is that correct? Strata or the fixed
Yes,
yield product on base?
yeah, I'll share the link up at the top of the chat here in just a second.
Thanks. Yeah. So if
So,
you are
so
interested, and please do your own research on those. I've looked at their
yeah,
audits, but you're taking on an additional layer of smart contract risk if you're using one
for
of these
sure.
fixed yield products.
Yeah, and I use VFAT as well. That's pretty useful in certain DeFi situations. But I want to ask in terms of like, I guess you're saying that that Arrow pool is over collateralized almost. So you have like the depth. It's almost like some of the stable coins are over collateralized. That's now I kind of understand it better. That's super helpful. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, all the
Yeah, and
pools
the
are
way
over
that,
collateralized. Yeah.
yeah, they're all over collateralized. And the other thing is that like you're paying like because there's so much liquidity in the markets, right? Like let's say there's, 1 million arrow supplied and then only 100,000 arrow are borrowed. Then the interest rate from that borrowed asset that has to get split among like the 100,000 borrow gets like split among, the million that are supplied. And so it just means that like, unless the utilization is like really high, also like, you know, that also will lower the rates. And then like, yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Eli, I think we have
Yep.
one more person. Maybe can we get into one more question, guys?
Yep.
And guys, thanks for your
Yes,
insightful
sir.
thoughts on that. I know there's a lot of, even me as a user, sometimes when I get opportunities to talk to platforms directly, I'll like bring up my personal troubleshooting or personal thought process. And I want to be clear, I've probably asked 100 of these questions already. So I value everybody who's coming on to ask important questions. But let's definitely take one more.
Yeah.
All right,
Sorry, that
last
was
one,
Spectra and
Shisha.
not Strata. I got the name wrong. My apologies to the Spectra team.
Shisha, you want to unmute and ask your question, sir?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to Luke. I feel like Moonwell is definitely one of the biggest innovators in this space. And to get someone like Tristan Thompson out here learning and trying to expand his role in the crypto community is amazing. If anyone can do it, it's definitely the Moonwell team. But I just wanted to talk more because it's always really interesting to me to see the NBA kind of be like the forefront of like innovation in crypto. I actually first got into crypto as a whole because of NBA Top Shot, which was a really cool project where you had moments, you could trade them. And it's just like a really novel idea. And just to kind of see that expand with Tristan kind of getting into DeFi is like really bullish overall, especially with like a bull cycle kind of on the way. And I guess my question is more on the side of like, once you kind of learn about crypto, I feel like people get pilled, but getting to that point, it takes too long, which is why the message is kind of lost on the masses. What kind of projects do you think would help onboard more people from the NBA and I guess like integrate with the NBA more to get people have like more of a positive perception on crypto and kind of, I guess, just like integrate better?
Yeah, no, I think the best way, and I think the easiest way to get people to onboard people, whether it's an MBA or just people that are in the retail space, is I think it's just the education, right? I think obviously with with the Web3 space, a lot of people, it's kind of people are more unknown and hidden, right? I think the NBA is very much of a copycat league, and what I mean by that, it's in terms of that, it's like if you have someone that you know that is that you work with, that you see on a daily basis, and they're having success, and they can literally show you what they're doing, and they're having that success, and they're making money, and in a way where it's safe and it's not like a rug, they won't mind dipping their toe in the water and joining the party. You know what I'm saying? I think for us, just because we have so many people, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if a financial advisor can't gain from Web3, he's not going to recommend his client to do it, right? So you're already going against that elephant in the room. So as a from a player to a player, if you have your team that you trust and he can show you and onboard you and explain to you in a way where it's simple and understanding, where you could do it on your own at your in your room when you're in a hotel, that's how you're going to be able to onboard more people, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's why I think something like Moonwell is great, because it's not, and especially what Luke explained, it's not something that's extremely complicated where you're going to be shitting your pants and getting lost in the sauce, right? So I think for me, that's how I'm going to go about it. That's how I've been going about it, to onboard not just only my teammates but family members, other friends of mine that have a lot of you know money, and want to use ways to make the money grow and create that passive income.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm super excited to see kind of what you bring as a whole. And I'm just super bullish now, especially with kind of the way that things are going with Moonwell is and the crypto scene as a whole.
The horns are out, man. The horns out. Grab your horns or put them on. Grab your horns.
Yeah. Guys, you know what? We appreciate everybody's time. I know we ran a little bit over today, so everybody who tuned in, and I know this is going to get replayed. It's going to be posted on YouTube and across different platforms. I definitely want to say, just like my perspective, just quickly on the way out, is, you know, I think in being somebody who has been in business with Tristan for over a decade, I think we look at like character and background on anybody that we enter into business with, whether it's in sports or Web3 or any other thing. And I think the one thing that drew us into this community has been the people on the Moonwell team, like Luke, like Eli, who we live in LA. We get bullshit all day. TT, you know this. We get people walking up to us with 1,000,001 ideas all day, but you can cut through the bullshit pretty easily. And I think for us and me in particular, the vibe and energy and authenticity that we got from the Moonwell team is kind of the reason that we're even opening things like this up. And Tristan, I know you haven't even done a Spaces yet in Web3, and just jumping on here and showing kind of your passion behind Moonwell. I think hopefully says a lot about your decision making, and everybody needs to do their own research and their own decision making. But I think for us, I just want to kind of speak on the character of the Moonwell team, and how much we appreciate them, and things like this, which are, not getting on to talk about anything or shill bullshit. We're just talking about tech, and we're talking about the community, and we're talking about, opportunities on platform. Like, it's a conversation. The takeaway from this is just, to continue to learn. And I think that's the best part about it. Want to do some parting words, Tristan? Anything you want to say before we cut? And Luke, I'd love to get some parting words from you after also.
Yeah, no, I think first of all, thank you everyone for that jumped on the space. This is my first ever one, and it was exciting. I think everyone taking time off from their busy schedule to jump on and chat and listen and hear what's going on and the great things that the Moonwell team has going on. So appreciate you, the audience listening. Luke, Eli, appreciate you guys as well for having me on. It's truly an honor, and I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity to join this with you guys and keep building this community out. And then, we're trying to change the narrative, man. We're trying to change the narrative each and every day, and we're trying to, make a better tomorrow, right? Not just for ourselves, but for our loved ones and kids and generations to come, right? So that's what our whole goal is, and that's my mindset, right? Like, how can I leave an impact on this earth that that can echo in eternity? So I appreciate everybody.
Thanks
So
for
well
that.
said, Tristan.
Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, I couldn't be more appreciative of all the great energy that you and Hadi bring to our community already. And, I'm really excited for your podcast for Courtside Crypto and how you're going to be able to educate all your followers and your fans on how to improve their financial outcomes through on-chain finance. It's really inspirational to me because it really aligns with the Moonwell mission and vision. And for those of you that have been following Moonwell for some time, I think you can understand after listening to this space why we're so aligned in wanting to educate more people, help people plan for a better future tomorrow. And so, couldn't be more pleased and thrilled and honored that you are, working with us. And you took the time to kind of be really thoughtful about how you got into this space, and that you're, part of the Moonwell community now. And it's really great, a privilege for us to, kind of have someone of your stature, join us and help us to, kind of bring on-chain finance to the world. And so really excited about, your podcast and all the success you're going to have, educating people. And we're just grateful to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
No, of course, of course. And everyone, yeah, everyone go on YouTube and go watch our pilot episode, go watch the podcast. Tell me what you guys think. You guys could DM me, you guys could tag me, tell me what you guys think. It was our first one, and we're gonna keep building from there.
And Tristan, we got to do some more of these spaces too, right? We got to get back on with Luke. We should make this like a regular occurrence. We should do this every now and then. I think this was cool. I liked it.
No, it was great. It was great. No, I had a great time. No, it was fun. We got to do it again for sure.
We appreciate you
Yeah,
guys. All right,
100%.
thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you to the Moonwell team. This is a wrap for Moonwell Radio, episode 5, the Playbook. Episode 6, sooner than later. Just stay tuned. And in the meanwhile, I wish everybody very well. Bitcoin 81,000 plus. Keep pumping. Hopefully, the next time we all speak, we're in the 90s or hundreds, and everybody's bags are increasing. But good luck to everybody in the space, and continue to learn and educate yourself. And that's a wrap for episode 5. So thanks everybody, and this will be available on YouTube. So if you missed anything or want to re-listen, feel free to do that. Getting my tongue twisted at the end, but we
Horns are out.
appreciate
The
you guys.
horns are out.
Yeah, the horns are out. That's a wrap.
Horns are out.
The horns are out. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Talk
Appreciate
soon.
everybody. Thank you guys.